Okay, good morning. Thank you for joining us today for another Eploy partner webinar. Today we're looking at converting more career page candidates with a unique and hyper-personalised candidate experience. First, just a little housekeeping. If you've got any questions that you'd like to ask during the webinar, please post them using the Q&A function in Teams, and Becca will be happy to answer them at the end. We're recording today's session. We'll make it available via the Eploy knowledge base and our website. So I'm delighted to welcome once again Becca Guinchard, Head of Strategy at AssessFirst, one of our Eploy marketplace partners. Now, Becca's a leading voice of the AssessFirst mission to transform global talent acquisition and development. She joined AssessFirst with a background in HR, operations and recruitment management within the UK retail, engineering and finance sectors. So I'm now going to hand over to Becca, who will be showing us how to convert more career page candidates with a unique and hyper-personalised candidate experience. Becca, it's great to have you with us once again.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you for the intro. And morning, everyone. I can see actually that there's already some people logged in on the call who actually currently use AssessFirst. So hello, and some others that we haven't necessarily met before. So welcome. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time out. So today I am going to talk through what is new here at AssessFirst and some of the most latest developments in our assessment platform that will be introduced live into our integration with Eploy very, very soon. This will mainly include our new personality assessment called Swipe, which, claim to fame, is the fastest personality assessment on the market right now. So for those of you who don't know what we do here at AssessFirst, essentially we are the specialists in predictive recruitment and assessments. We've had well over 20 years now worth of experience in helping our global clients introduce data-driven decisions into their recruitment and talent management processes, with the overall objective in really ensuring that they are hiring individuals that are motivated and align with their company cultures. So this year we were named as an assessment specialist on the Fosway 9 grid, which I think is certainly a testament to the impact that we're definitely seeing on our clients' bottom line and looking and helping them to create agile processes. So this gives you a little bit of an idea of some of the enterprise clients we work with, but because of what we assess within our tool, which is very much an individual's personality, their motivations, their mental agility, our tool can create real impact on improving a whole bunch of different KPIs, whether that be turnover, whether that be engagement, productivity, quality in hiring, across all different business sizes, all levels or hierarchy of roles, and all industry types. So it's very, very malleable. So I'm sure that amongst some of you, you will be using some form of an assessment tool. There's obviously a lot to select from out there on the market. But what makes us different here at AssessFirst? The first point I want to run through is our candidate and user experience. We are very conscious that our assessment ultimately represents you as a business, right? So we want to help you and help your employee brand shine as much as possible. And secondly, we are backed by the most recent and most advanced science. So whether that be down to the investment that we put into our team, the sheer volume of parallel research that we conduct, ultimately we understand the crucial focus on science and ensuring the validity of our solution in order to make sure that we yield success for our clients. Now, at the core of our assessment and our focus as a platform is very much on soft skills. As much as hard or technical skills have a place in determining a level of success of an individual within a role, we know 9 times out of 10 people don't leave businesses because they can't necessarily do the role. They tend to leave businesses because of a personal alignment. Maybe they don't get on with their managers, maybe they're not aligned with the business ethos and the future goals of the business. And so it is for that reason that this is a crucial element when it comes to actually defining success, understanding who they are as individuals, hence why it's so important that soft skills are included within that process of assessment. However, I'm sure you can relate to this, that doesn't necessarily always mean that the process sits like that, right? Let's imagine that this is your talent pool this is people that maybe have actively applied or you have headhunted and specifically sourced, you will more than likely review who they are through reviewing their CV. So looking at certain elements on that CV, certain data points that will be captured to compare from one candidate to the next. And often those data points will be the standard, right? So they will be maybe somebody's schooling, what that looks like, what somebody's chosen in terms of their degree or how they've performed in their degree, and then also looking at their previous experience. Now, the main issue with this practice is that depending upon the fields that you are looking at, so depending upon the type of schools, depending upon the type of degrees, depending upon maybe if they've worked for some of the larger, more influential businesses, these predictors of success won't necessarily be an equal distribution or an equal representation of the general population, meaning that inevitably it is likely that there will be sectors of society who are underrepresented during this initial review of candidates. This then leaves, you guys, the TA community, facing two pretty frustrating problems. The first being that actually you're going to have underrepresented people that sit within that talent pool the further we descend down the funnel. Leading then to the second challenge is going to make it a lot more difficult to ensure that those who are eventually hired form a team that is a lot more diverse and represent more accurately the local communities and general population. Now, that isn't to say that, elements of a CV are all bad. There is, of course, a place for technical focus when reviewing a CV, but for the data and skills extracted to be the main predictor within an existing process can very easily lead to indirect discrimination. And as mentioned before, the irony of all of that is that these data points are not truly linked to future performance. If we take, for example, somebody who has been doing a job or role already, that actually only predicts 3 to 5% of the difference between those high performers, best performers, and worse performers and employees that you can then go on to recruit. Now, the catch is, and I guess there's always a catch, it's really easy to understand how long somebody has been doing a job for. It's easy to get this data, and that forms part of the reason why recruitment is still done in this way for a lot of organizations. But trying to put a spin on all of that, positive spin on all of that, certainly from the discussions that I have personally been having over the last couple of years, it's clear that, the community know better, change is coming, there is, and we are seeing less emphasis on referring just to the CV. There is more understanding on how diversity can support, business growth and the wider business. And I've certainly seen a reduction in importance given just to cognitive levels. And at AssessFirst, we genuinely feel like we are traveling that path with you guys, with recruiters, to ensure that we're searching for as many ways as possible to accelerate that growth, accelerate that progress. And that is ultimately being guided by our tech and our vision as a business. And that vision is really to help you see who your candidates really are above and beyond their CV, above and beyond, what somebody has said in their interview. What is somebody's natural talents and how does that fit into what you're, requiring of them to do within a role? So if we go back to revisiting that candidate pool again, and we see those candidates for who they are, there certainly may be useful indications that collaborate, with this, or can be used in collaboration with this. But what is really being looked at here are the behaviours, are the motivations, what makes ultimately a candidate unique from a psychological point of view. So how do we implement and assess soft skills through our assessments here at AssessFirst? We essentially assess the umbrella of potential. And we focus in on 3 areas absolutely crucial to understand about an individual when you're looking to identify their potential and likelihood to succeed within a role. And that's what you see on the screen here. We have an assessment focusing in on mental agility, so understanding what the individual can do. An assessment focusing in on personality, so how they behave in certain situations. And then the important, or I guess the most unique assessment across the three is the motivations piece, really focusing and identifying in a data-driven way, what is it that these candidates want to do? How do they want to do it? In what kind of environment? Alongside what kind of manager? All three of these combined, and you've got an idea and understanding of the natural talents of an individual and what makes them unique, what comes easy for them or to them, so that you can then place them and hire them into the right role. Now, we're then taking that descriptive information, that descriptive approach, and turning it into a predictive approach to help streamline your processes. How that descriptive to predictive approach plays out in reality really consists of three simple steps. The first is we will work with businesses to help define their expectations. So define benchmarks, identify what good looks like on role by role basis. And it is then that definition that is used as a basis of comparison for all people completing the assessment. The second step is obviously once that definition is defined or expectation is defined, you will then request that your candidates will take the assessment. And then we have a whole array of different functionalities in order to really compare that information, analyze that information to ensure that you are selecting the right top talent for your roles. Now, steps 1 and 3 of this approach we aren't going to touch today. I can certainly pick up on that outside of the webinar if anyone wishes. You can place a request in the chat or reach out to me afterwards. Today's focus is really going to be looking at step 2, so looking at where we have worked hard to innovate in the space, most recently on the evaluation and assessment piece. And this is really, really important for us to get right, because it is sure, and maybe you form part of, this kind of population, that there are both candidates and businesses who just do not like assessments. And that tends to be due to two kind of main things. First off, lack of validity. It's really, really easy to make a very bad personality assessment. So the validity then of that assessment against a specific job is very poor. And so people question the reason why, they're being requested to take them as part of the process. And equally, employers don't really know why they are requesting candidates to take them. The second main factor is that candidate experience is often very discouraging. It's often inevitably very damaging to the employee brand piece. These assessments can take very long, very cumbersome, and certainly in a candidate-driven market that we currently sit in a lot of industries, these factors don't bode well for ensuring a speedy time to hire. And we all know about the fallout of that. We then see that or find that we have dropouts throughout the process. So accepting that as a challenge is the first step, and also understanding that this is the way now that candidates view and see the world. So whether that's general communication through social media, Insta, LinkedIn, whatever, whether that be literally ordering food in, whether that be communicating and using this sort of tech from a music and entertainment perspective, getting around, just chilling out at home and finding love. There is a consistent thread there whereby this is a way that people want to see and ultimately see and interact with the world. And so we asked a very challenging, I guess, but a very simple questions to ourselves. What if we could step away from the norm when it came to personality assessments and make a personality assessment that was super simple as the applications that exist today, and intuitive, but also impactful for both the candidate and the employer. And so the main thing I'm going to be showing you today is, and this will be available in Eploy, the integration that already exists between AssessFirst and Eploy very, very soon. But what I'm going to run through is ultimately our swipe assessment, our new assessment. This is taking that challenge and creating a simple dare I say, fun personality assessment. So this was the goal, very much to create an image-based personality assessment and to focus on the scientific validity, because the assessment would mean nothing if it wasn't valid. And so we focused on the Big Five framework, consisting of assessing 20 key personality traits and 12 key behaviours. Alongside that scientific validity, we had kind of really key focuses that we wanted to absolutely smash in the production and the development of the assessment. The first was the piece around speed. We wanted to make this image-based personality assessment as quick as possible. And what we've actually been able to develop is an assessment that takes on average 5 to 7 minutes to complete. So again, really adding to that candidate experience element. Secondly, we wanted it to be mobile first. That just really reiterates what I mentioned earlier about the focus and the focus of the world right now and how people expect to be communicating. Thirdly was, obviously, we wanted it to be engaging. We wanted it to be a memorable experience. We wanted candidates to get something out of taking the assessment, and equally, we wanted to ensure that the assessment being added into the existing process for our clients wasn't going to be a negative, disengaging experience for those candidates, and therefore pose problems for our candidates. And then linking back to the Big Five, it needs to be, it needs to be valid, it needs to be reliable, it needs to ultimately be as fair and minimize adverse impact as much as it could do. So what did the actual development process look like? There was basically a two-step approach when we looked at developing Swipe. The first step was basically to make a huge list of traits, of items based on the Big Five model, and understand how those items could be assessed within what order to create a valid assessment. So iteration 1 was a set of 360 items, basically with two options. So on the left-hand side here, you can see there's two options to select from: share and inspire, which resulted in 720 choices to be answered from. We then reviewed that. Within that first step, we looked at just under 3,000 participants who took part in that initial iteration. And what's interesting to note is that split between women and men in terms of participants. The second step, we basically focused upon the best items, ones from the initial iteration that gave us the best psychological validity, and we then broadened the reach of our research base. So 4,500 participants there were included in that second iteration. And the results off the back of that second iteration was the creation of the current version of Swipe, which sees 75 items, measuring 20 current personality traits within a 5-minute time frame. So let's deep dive into what that actually looks like. It starts off by offering a little tutorial. So putting into context the assessment that they're about to take. We are very conscious that this may be the first, or it's certain to be the first time that a candidate will have taken an assessment like this. So we felt that front end piece was really important to make sure that we're explaining that, yes, it is going to be potentially challenging and engaging and possibly tough to choose between two options, but we want the candidates to try and pick the one that feels most like themselves. Once they're happy with that, we then run through a quick example of the selection of a trait, and then we start the assessment. Just to note, this is focusing on the desktop version, just for the ease of this presentation. But as mentioned before, this is very much a mobile first assessment. So once that example has been completed, they will then go through the 75 items. And just to kind of give you an example of how these are presented, you can see here some of the traits that are up for selection here. Now, what I can tell you after months and months of research and development is that the candidate experience is incredibly important to us. that is very much reflected in the output of the assessment. Not only is the actual experience engaging, and I'll show you that it's not just us who thinks that. There's certainly data that concludes that, but we want we want a candidate to feel like they get something out of it. So what you see here is a candidate summary report that a candidate will receive regardless of whether they are successful eventually for the role. Something that is sent automatically, high level, but it's a nice little takeaway for those who do complete the assessment, for those that aren't necessarily successful. There's also the option there for them to share their soft skills on LinkedIn. So again, there's a huge potential around employer branding there. So what is it that we're seeing from a reaction and results perspective? Probably the most important element. Candidate experience matters, and that has very much been reflective in the findings. As mentioned, we're offering a 5-minute assessment duration. We're seeing an average of 4.4 out of 5 in recorded satisfaction, and an understanding, which is obviously crucial, of 4.7 out of 5, meaning that those candidates or those individuals that take the assessment, understand what it is that's actually being asked of them. And that's important to note because we're conducting this in over 15 different languages, so that's obviously a crucial element as well. Again, that's reflected through the fact that that satisfaction rating of 4.4, it's when looked into detail, we're seeing 51% score 5 out of 5 and 85% score either 4 or 5 out of 5 when we're looking at how satisfied people are with the actual assessment. And again, when we're looking at understanding, 76% of those individuals taking the assessment and using the assessment are scoring 5 out of 5, and 92% 4 or 5 out of 5. One of the key elements that we wanted to really focus on from a development perspective was ensuring that the assessment was inclusive as possible. And we're really looking at 0 adverse impact. And that was very much telling in when we're looking at the candidate experience, when we're looking at certain different groups, what is the actual impact of that candidate experience on those different groups. You can see here when you're looking at gender, it's equally pretty much appreciated by both men and female. When we're looking there again, as well at the degrees and level of education that individuals have, satisfaction, understanding, again, relatively consistent between 4 and 5. And then when we're looking at actual experience level of individuals, again, all sitting between 4 and 5 when it comes to both the satisfaction and the understanding of the assessment. So we are literally seeing 0 adverse impact. I guess that forms part of the reason why the scientific community in particular is falling over themselves to get more information on swipe, because historically, measuring personality to this degree, certainly of accuracy and validity, has been a challenging exercise and one that has been difficult to distribute by scale in an engaging way. And that's the key message here. We have had put a major focus on candidate experience and speed that has actually really revolutionized the way that we can now assess personality. So that concludes my run through of swipe and our innovation in the personality assessment space. I guess what most people care about is, okay, that's all great, that all looks pretty, we know it's scientifically valid, but so what? What does that actually mean for you guys? What does that mean for businesses, for TA teams, for HR teams? And I can certainly speak from my own experiences working with businesses across industries. When people are taking a predictive approach, distributing an experience like no other, and then using that data to select top talent, they inevitably recruit better. They are going to find better matches. They are going to be recruiting and do recruit a lot more diverse individuals into teams. And as you can imagine, retention sees a huge improvement because suddenly you're going to be recruiting people who are aligned with your business and want to go to work on a day-to-day basis. Now, what I've shown you there is very much the assessment, but what really empowers you guys on TA teams is the use of the predictive technology and leveraging that behind the scenes to ultimately, make your lives easier, right? And businesses perform better. So if you're interested in delving into, I guess that next step and understanding how to use the outputs of this assessment to pre-sift, to better inform hiring managers, to educate hiring managers, to align internal teams, to manage workforce planning, and also understand how that would look like specifically in Eploy through the integration. I'd certainly be happy to discuss that offline. Please, as I mentioned, drop a note in the chat, or you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, or I've conveniently put my email there at the bottom so that you can drop me a mail there as well. So thank you very much for your time. I hope that has been some food for thought. Bruce, I believe I can't actually see the chat, but I'm assuming there will be some form of questions.
Got a few questions for you here, Becca. Thanks so much for that. It looks amazing. I was actually, whilst you were going through, I was trying to work out which way I would be swiping on some of those examples that you were showing. I'd love to have a go with it myself, actually. So I've got a question here. What is the candidate completion rate? So I guess they're looking here for the percentage of candidates that start the assessment and then actually complete it.
So we've got an overall completion rate for all three that sits at 89% of candidates who basically log in, create an account with us, which takes 20 seconds, and complete all three assessments. So for Swipe in particular, that percentage will naturally be higher as a standalone assessment, but we're looking there at a minimum of 89%.
Okay, that's pretty high. Sorry, another question here. Is there somewhere I can see all of the research and results of the testing phases or scientific information in more detail?
Yes, definitely. On our website, there's the Science Hub, which basically I can actually send you the link across
Right.
in later today if you want, but that basically will run through, that gives you everything from published articles to our tech manuals to our reports to our case studies. Everything is there. Okay,
great. We'll just for everyone, we'll get that link for you and we'll put it into the email follow-up that we'll do after the webinar. Somebody else has asked, what do your other assessments look like?
You kind of saw there was a little screenshot there of the other two, but basically the motivation piece is takes an average of 10 minutes to complete. There's basically a selection of statements selected from two options. We're looking at 20 motivation traits for that based upon the Deci and Ryan theory. And then we've got our brain assessment, which was actually redeveloped, about 2000, I don't know if it was 2020 or 2021. But basically that has been designed specifically for the adverse impact piece and neurodiverse individuals. That is focusing in on assessing something called the general intelligence factor. It's gamified, it's adaptive, again, really ensuring that we're creating and providing the best candidate experience possible.
Cool. So you've spoken a lot about recruitment use cases. What assessments exist for talent management and for development?
Good question. Actually, the assessments are exactly the same because the variable within our tool isn't the assessment. It means that actually we assess all aspects of personality, all aspects of motivation, all aspects, of mental agility right at the front end through our assessments, meaning that, the same assessments will say draw all of the information needed for the talent development use case. The only thing that changes is that step 3, which will be the functionalities introduced into the platform that will kind of use that information in a different way. So yeah, that means certainly from kind of a practical agile perspective, if somebody has taken those assessments during the existing recruitment process, they need not retake the assessment to use the functionalities we offer post-hire for their development.
Great. Okay. Another question's come in. The output of the assessment, is that then checked by a person, or is there some clever AI process that does a sift for you?
AI is one option, but that's the whole idea that we've kind of focused on from a development perspective, is we're wanting to make it as predictive as possible, so, and kind of move away from certainly to improve your time management, somebody having to read through reports, and essentially, you know, introduce some element of bias into the process. So in answer to your question, yes, there are, you know, AI functionalities that will be able to use the tool from a sifting perspective. Certainly if volume recruiting is a challenge, or even kind of later on down the line for maybe more senior hires as well.
Great. And one last one, can I give it a go?
Yeah, well, Bruce, I get the impression that you totally want to give it a go.
I
So
totally want to.
I'll send you the link. But what I will do alongside the link for the Science Hub, I will send across the link for those that do want to try the assessment. No problem in a follow-up mail.
Brilliant. Thanks, Becca. It's been great having you with us once again. Hope everyone enjoyed that. Please feel free to reach out to Becca directly. For Eploy customers as well, feel free to speak to your Eploy account manager. We can get you in touch with the team at AssessFirst, and also talk about the current integration that we already have in place with AssessFirst. So thanks everyone for your time today. We have recorded it. There's some additional follow-ups we'll put into the email with some of those links that Becca's been talking about. And then we'll get that out to you as soon as we can. We'll get the recording up onto the knowledge base in Eploy. We'll also get it onto our website, into the resources section there. You can also find out more information about AssessFirst via the Eploy marketplace, as AssessFirst are a marketplace partner of ours, and there's more information there. So once again, Becca, thanks so much. I know you've had a busy evening with the kids, so really appreciate your time today. Thanks a lot, everyone, and we'll see you soon for another Eploy partner webinar. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.